they're not generating any money off their music, right? But they want beats from me for free. So they'll say, give me free beats and I'll split it 50-50 with you. And I look at their Spotify and it says, 22 monthly listeners. You're generating $0, literally $0. So me splitting 50% of zero with you doesn't make any type of sense. Yeah, then we can start charging for it. Peace, what's going down? It's the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast, episode 123. My name is DJ Payne One. I'm joined by Dame Ritter and Aaron Knight, the usual suspects here. Today is a very special day because Aaron and I are kind of not doing that much. It's like a vacation. We get to see Dame just rant and quality.
Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully you guys chime in with your perspectives. Hopefully you challenge me, question, but
no, we don't question or challenge Dame because then he'll take our masters.
So a few days ago, and this is why I got my Funk Volume hoodie on, I'm just going about my day. I think I was coming back from the gym and I got a text from an artist. I won't say his name because I'm not going to drag any names into this unnecessarily. And he was like, I saw the post from Dizzy, and I don't follow Dizzy anymore. I just kind of, the people I don't associate with anymore. I just, that's not what I do. I got other stuff going on. If I'm not, there was no beef, there was no, animosity. I just, for the people that I don't work with or need to hear from, I don't follow anyway. That's just how I use my social media. But apparently Dizzy made a post because we did have a deal in place for him to get his masters back. Dizzy, for the people that don't know, I ran a label called Funk Volume and I signed Dizzy Wright in 2012. And in 2012, Dizzy wasn't a full-time artist. He wasn't making money from his music. So I think that's something that I'll probably bring up over and over again because that's crucial in understanding the deal that he signed at the time. I think a lot of times when artists have issues with their labels or their management, fans look at it from the view of where they are now, right? As opposed to where they were when they signed the deal, because obviously at that time, he wasn't really doing anything. We plucked him out of Vegas, put him into a system and allowed him to make money immediately when that wasn't what he was doing. So there was risk. The risk profile was much greater in 2012 than Dizzy Wright as an artist today. So I need people to understand that because it's crucial in this conversation. Because if you think, oh, why would Dizzy sign this deal? He's a great artist. Like, he wasn't that at the time. He wasn't moving like that at the time. So I don't know if one of you guys can just read off the tweet and then I can talk about the deal that he was in and some things that are just factually wrong about his statement. And then some things, obviously, we can have a difference of opinion, but I think that there's some lack of just knowledge about the industry sprinkled all throughout his statement. So I don't know if one of you guys have it pulled up, but
okay, I'm gonna read it.
Okay.
He says, I finally own my Funk Volume Masters 100%. I'm so thankful. I signed the Funk Volume in 2011 and believed in the vision that would be around for a long time. So I split my masters 50-50 with the label.
All right, I need to stop you there.
Yeah, good. This is why I didn't want to read it because I was going to keep pausing myself. You got to hit the pause button and throw a flag on the play on that one line.
So yeah, let me stop you there. So truth in the fact that now he does own his masters. Him and I came to an agreement because after Funk Volume split, I still continue to pay out his royalties according to his contract that he signed with Funk Volume. And then the agreement was over the course of 2 years, I would deduct a certain amount. And then after 2 years, he would have his masters free and clear. So now that those 2 years is up, he does have his masters free and clear. The 50-50 part, I don't even know what he's talking about. This doesn't even help my perspective right now because he didn't own any of his masters. So I'm like, this is weird. Like, I don't even know where he got that from. He did not own 50%. I don't know if he wanted it to sound a little bit better. Like maybe, I don't want my fans to think I signed that type of, like, all my masters away, but he didn't own any of his masters. The deal that he signed it was a profit sharing deal, but Funk Volume owned the masters. So it was a profit sharing deal, and it was a 360. That's another buzzword people are going to hear and be like, "Oh, he signed a 360." Well, in our situation, I don't think that 360 deals are necessarily a bad deal if you are in kind of the situation that Dizzy was in, right? Again, we plucked him from Vegas. He wasn't doing anything. We immediately put him in front of a ton of fans, and within a year, he was making pretty much six figures, and it grew from there.
When you say he wasn't doing anything, let's just put some clarity around that, because suddenly people are going to be like, he was dropping music. You mean from a business perspective, he was not a profitable business and therefore went from 0 to plus 100 grand in less than a year?
Indeed. So at the time, he probably had one, maybe two videos that had 100,000 views, something like that on YouTube. But it wasn't the Dizzy Wright that you see today. It was, a Dizzy that was struggling in Vegas. He told me that he had spent some time trying to sell vacuums door to door. That didn't work out. Prior to that, he was doing parties in Vegas. He was not making a living from his music. Like, this was an opportunity for him to get plugged into a system. And we had a nice little infrastructure. We had a bunch of fans. Immediately he signed. We were able to put him on the road to open up for Hobson. Like, we were doing stuff that a major label couldn't do for an artist, right? Like, a major label can put a lot of money behind you and hope that it works out. But we could put you in front of actual fans that trust us to put out quality talent. And that's an advantage that an independent label has, and maybe some imprints within a major label system have. Your MMGs, your Top Dogs, they have the ability to put you in front of actual fans. So labels can give you money, but labels with a brand can put you in front of actual fans because there's already a trusted relationship there. So
in exchange for you guys providing that much value, Dizzy gives up his masters for his next projects that y'all pay for,
right?
And it's a profit sharing deal,
right? So the profit sharing, so it was for 4 actual albums. So it would have to, because Dizzy put out like a bunch of EPs and some mixtapes and things like that. So actual albums, the structure was 30% profit to him, 70 to us. Again, people are going to hear that and be like, oh, that sounds shady. Dizzy wasn't making anything from his music at the time. So just remember that the risk involved in putting money into an artist like that is high. So, and then every actual album, it would start to creep in his favor. So go from 40-60 and then 50-50. And I think we did like a five album deal. So that was the music. So let
me pause again, because let's put something into perspective. We're gonna hear a lot of feedback from people saying, master ownership. People get real dramatic. This is slavery. You enslave the man by taking half his masters, or whatever the case is. Granted, it's a conversation to have. I think master ownership is a conversation to have, a debate. However, I would guess 99.9% of all of your favorite rappers, regardless of whether they're on an independent label or a major, have the same deal with worse splits. Every label takes master ownership. That's just how it's always been. Every label gives you back a certain percentage. Generally, I think Mark Tavern said it was about 16% or something like that. If you're doing a 60-40 deal with master reversion, meaning after a couple of years, he gets 100% of his masters back, which he did, hence this whole conversation. Relative to every other deal out there, that's incredibly fair. And in terms of relating it to real life, business dealings, it's kind of, actually, let me not relate it to real life business dealings, but you're basically renting out your intellectual property for a period of time, getting paid for it, and then you get it all back and you continue to get paid for it. So I think the average person who knows nothing about the music business is going to be shocked if they ever get to the point where they're faced with actual label business, and two, they're probably just so underexposed, inexperienced, that they're going to have a kind of visceral knee-jerk reaction to even hearing about master ownership or splits. It's like, it's my music. Why? Well, one, there are 2 copyrights. Dizzy kept 100% of his underlying composition, aka his publishing. You didn't touch that, I'm sure, Dame. Because why would you? You're not a publishing company.
No, that's all. So we managed him as well. So we got a percentage on the publishing side as well. So
how much?
25% of the publisher's share.
Okay, of the publisher's share. So he had his full writer share,
right,
and half of his and 75% of his publisher's share,
right.
Okay, that's very little to give up.
Right. So yeah. So, and also,
okay, can I provide just one more? I just want to give, because I know how artists think. I just want to give for clarity, 100% of no money is no money, especially if you have to pay for it yourself. So if he was recording, maybe he spent $1,000, $2,000 per album, owned 100% of it, didn't make his 2,000 back, didn't make anything. You are now coming in and saying, hey, we will pay for you to make this music, and we're going to make sure that it generates money, and you get 30% of that. If 30% of that now equals $100,000, that is still a way better deal. And it's not even just like super fair. It's very generous for a brand new artist. So I just want to put that out there, because I know people don't understand sometimes.
And like relating to, if you're a producer, to relate that, I get people contacting me all the time. They're not, to quote Dame, they're not doing anything in the sense that they're not generating any money off their music, right? But they want beats from me for free. So they'll say, give me free beats and I'll split it 50-50 with you. And I look at their Spotify and it says, 22 monthly listeners. You're generating $0, literally $0. So me splitting 50% of zero with you doesn't make any type of sense. So I'm not going to do it. And labels are looking at those numbers even more, because in my situation, I'm just giving up a beat. A label's giving up money. A label's giving up energy, human resources, other kinds of resources. So it is a big investment. And I think we need to find ways to relate to this situation. Even though it's one of those situations that maybe a lot of us will never find ourselves in.
And the other thing that I want to, like, a profit sharing deal is different than how most major labels recoup, right? A profit sharing deal is probably what most people think about when I say profit sharing deal. So if I because I think we put 25 grand into his first album, again, an artist that's never made he wasn't profitable from his music. So an artist that wasn't profitable, immediately put him into an infrastructure, put him in front of fans, and invested 25 grand into his first album. So if I invest 25,000, once that project makes 25,000, it's recouped, right? And then after the any dollar after that is split 70-30, right? Whereas a major label, the way they recoup is if it's a 70-30 deal, that 25,000 will have to be recouped out of his 30%. So when it makes $100,000, it basically has to make $100,000 for him to recoup, because once it makes 100,000, 70 goes to the label, 30 goes to the artist, but 25 of that 30 needed to be recouped. So basically he only made $5,000. That's a huge difference. Right. And I think a lot of artists don't understand that math. And it's what keeps artists in their deal. Right. Because a label is going to spend, like, let's just say Facebook ads. You're going to spend money as long as those ads are giving a positive return, right? So if I spend $1 and I get back $2 in sales, that's a win, right? Like, I'm going to keep doing that. The label's going to keep doing that. But from an artist perspective, if that dollar is coming out of your 30% or 20% or whatever deal you have, you're going to keep being in the hole as long as they spend that dollar. I probably should have a chalkboard to show how that math works. But because every time they make $2, you're only making 40 cents if you're getting 20 cents of that, right? But if they keep spending $1 to do that, you're 60 cents in the hole every time they do it. So that's why you're never going to recoup, and the label's gonna be extremely satisfied with that situation because they're making hella bread and you are going to be stuck in your deal. That's not what this was. This was a profit sharing deal. So,
well, just to be clear too, you'll be stuck in your deal for as long as the term. It doesn't, most deals aren't structured. I haven't ever seen a deal that was structured around reaching a certain amount of payment. It's not like,
right, but you'll never.
But if you don't recoup,
you'll never see another dollar from that project.
Right, which is unfortunate. But no matter what, like, I think I hear a lot of people saying, if you don't recoup, you're stuck with that label. It's like, no, you can recoup and still be stuck with that label. If you sign a deal for 5 albums or 5 years, you're stuck for 5 albums for 5 years, no matter how much money you make or how much money you don't make. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, my fault. But that is why probably, I don't want to talk about Meek Mill just yet, but that might be why Meek has never seen $1 from his project, because he wasn't mindful of what they're spending, or maybe didn't have any control over what they were spending.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what his contract
in his first deal, he was probably like 14% on the first album. And if recouped by the time the second album, you go up to like 18%. And if recouped by the third album, so if he didn't recoup by the second album, he's still at the 14%, and it's a more, so like you said,
I can't wait for him to drop the paperwork.
Right.
Yeah. If he does.
But anyway, so where were we at in Dizzy's post?
Okay, so he said 50-50, which apparently was not true, which is wild already. Like, how are you going to lie and try to save face at one time? But okay. Because at first, when Payne and I read this, Payne was like, yo, he's mad at a 50-50 deal. And I was like, facts. Who would be upset at like owning 50% of your masters and having somebody dump money into what you're trying to build? So now he's even lying about that. So that just like that's crazy. Or maybe I won't say he's lying. He may just not understand. He may think it's that. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Right,
That's crazy.
I think my vote is that he's not lying, that he just doesn't know.
Yeah.
No idea.
Which is crazy that so many people applauded this too, because if I see a 50-50 deal, I'm like, I'm applauding whoever gave an artist that. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy. Because that's how we are. We give our artists masters, whatever. Anyways, even though I wrote all the lyrics and came up with all these ideas, I was a part of something bigger than me. So 50% went back into the label to help it grow.
So
Can we stop there?
Yeah, I mean, you can go ahead and say what you want to say, and then I'll comment on it as well.
He said that even though I wrote all the lyrics and came up with all these ideas, if you didn't listen to last week's podcast, go back and listen to this. If you're an artist and your only thing you're offering is your music, I can go get that anywhere. Anybody can write lyrics. Anybody, yes, talent is subjective, but there was 15 other people that you could have gotten in better positions or in the exact same position, and you could have done the exact rinse and repeat. No disrespect to Dizzy and his talent, none of that. But you weren't signing him because of the lyrics and all that. You were signing him because of the potential. So for him to act as if that was such this heavily valued thing, and even so, I gave 50%. I gave 50% back. We gave you money, beloved. We gave you an opportunity. We put you on tour. Let's talk about the dollars and cents. If we're looking at you bring music, we bring infrastructure, credibility, resources, and the initial investment, and then the machine to keep it going, plus management so you don't have to go outside. Please tell me how 50% is even remotely unfair, even though that wasn't his deal. But the way he's trying to make it, he's trying to make himself a martyr. He's like, oh, well, I believed in what y'all were doing. No, we believed in you and we gave you money, Dizzy. So go for it, Dave.
Yeah, no, and obviously I believed in his talent, but at the time there were definitely other artists that would have signed to us for a bag of Funyuns. Like it wasn't, but I thought Dizzy was special. I thought his talent was special, and I thought he would be something different to add to the mix of what we were doing. I was always looking to try to get different fan bases, not just get entrenched in ours. But I think he thinks that I'm okay with this because the money's going to go back into the label to help me grow. And that's part of it. But when you sign a deal, you're also like, I'm kind of placing this bet, investing in you to also reap rewards from that. There should be a risk reward. It's not just to help the label grow, it's to compensate me for the bet that I'm taking and all the work that I'm doing. Right. So it's twofold. Like, nobody at a label just invest in artists so that the label does well. I mean, ultimately the label does well and it funds their pockets like that. This is a business. We're trying to grow a business that we all can benefit from. So,
and I feel like the undertones of this is Dame took my money.
Yep.
Not that y'all had a staff, not that there was tour personnel that went out with him, not that there was a merch company supporting it. The undertones of this is like somebody was just taking no, there was an entire business being run, and Hobson made a portion of that as well as a co-label owner. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, all of this, the undertones are what really are disconcerting to me on this.
Yeah, and it's not even really to me, it's like, it speaks loudly to me because I know where he's coming from. He just doesn't understand the business at all.
But let me add this one thing too. There's just so much anti-label sentiment in the world because, granted, the music industry traditionally has done horrible things to artists. Who ends up losing these days are the heads of independent labels, managers. People just start lumping them all into the same category and putting them under the industry type umbrella. And so as long as you're not an artist, you're in the crosshairs because people love artists and will always take their side. And I feel like today, even an artist could go on Instagram and say, I signed this deal with the label. I had 100% of my publishing and 100% of my masters because I wrote it. They only gave me $1 million advance. And once the album flopped, they dropped me. This is the worst label on the planet. And there would be an outpouring of support for them. And you're like, wait, the label got nothing. You got 100% of everything. And people would be like, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. Well, how is the label supposed to eat? Well, they're not, because they're the ones that are exploiting the creatives. Like, that's just not how life works. And we can't relate that to stuff that would affect us in those scenarios. It's like, if you decided to run a garage sale and you did all the work and the rest of your family slept until the garage sale was over, you'd be like, I'm not giving them all of this money. I did all the work. Or producers saying, I made the beat, but of course the rapper's entitled to 100%. I'm not entitled to 0. We would never say that. A rapper would never perform for a festival and say, I'm just going to give the festival 100%, or the festival wants to take 100%. We just have to find ways to relate that to our own experiences. And what we end up doing is just taking the side of the creative every time and not seeing both sides and looking at it a little more objectively.
And artists take advantage of that left and right. And it only hurts the industry in the long run. Like, the artists know that even when they fuck up, they can spin it to their fans as if it was the big bad industry again, the big bad label, the big bad manager. And the fans, they don't understand the business. And they probably just watched the NWA movie or the TLC story. And that's in line with what I already thought. You know, it sucks that these artists are always getting taken advantage of, even when a lot of the times it's the artist doing something extremely ridiculous. And it just sucks that they use that as a crutch. It's very cowardly, in my opinion, you know, that no accountability is ever taken. And you just continue to beat up on the labels when the labels don't really have direct access or credibility with, you know, your regular person.
And a lot of times the reason that these stories get out are because artists are more interested in like virtue signaling and displaying their emotion on the internet. Truth be told, if the three of us wanted to divulge stories, you know, and that's the thing, like the artists they know that we're not as messy as them. So they go to the internet and they don't expect any backlash, which is why I'm glad that we're doing this, because it's like, maybe everybody won't see this because you're not going to your Instagram and Twitter talking about it. But by and large, I feel like artists try me because they know I'm not messy. They know I'm going to keep it moving and I'm going to go get it. I'm going to work. And they know that I'm not in the wrong, because if I was, they would have a conversation with me. A lot of times artists take to the internet just to get sympathy, and they have to live with that. Like, this dude has to go to sleep every night, living with himself. And for me, I just feel like that's such a shitty place to be. Like, people have invested in you, giving you time, energy, and effort, and you want to talk shit about them because you're frustrated because you were uneducated. And I know the way that you operate, and you're like, this is what it is. Here's how we're doing. Do you have any questions? Like, again, due diligence. I'm not blaming everything on the artist. They need to, but they gotta understand. You can't be a part of a business and not understand the business. And I just think this is, like you said, it's a cowardly move. He knows that you're not gonna come for him. He knows you're not about to be in his DMs, whatever. So he's just like, I'm gonna just throw this up there so people can see that I'm a good artist and and Dame's the bad guy. And it's like, this shit is weak to me.
Yeah, and this post has gotten more likes than he's gotten because I looked at it and I just scrolled through some of his, it's getting, and then he like doubled down on it on another post, like on his, because he saw that one was getting so much love. The next one is like headline, Dizzy Wright gets back rights to all his masters, and he's getting, you know, even more love on that one. So, but it's like, why, you know, I'm not the end all be all in the music industry. I'm not, you know, Diddy, I can't change your life in the drop of a dime, but I do some cool shit and I meet a lot of cool people. I don't understand why people would burn a bridge unnecessarily. Like, if you want some likes or views, like there's other ways to do that. Like, you can make better music. You can, you know, do whatever you want. Give some weed to your dog and see if that goes viral. Like, whatever you want to do. Like, why?
Don't give weed to your dog, please.
Like, why come for me? Like, I'm just going about my day, doing my thing. But anyway, I don't know. We still got, I mean, the Mets, we can, you know, some of this we can probably speed through, but we can keep going.
Okay. So he said, I was a part of something bigger, gave back 50%, whatever. When the label dismantled in 2015, it had nothing to do with me. But unfortunately, moving forward, I never got that 50% back. And that was supposed to help grow the label. When we parted ways, I felt like all the masters to my music should have come to me because there was no label anymore. So I should be able to invest that back in my own career, which is what Funk Volume would have been doing.
So I got it. So that is the core of our disagreement, right? Or just our difference of opinion. He believes that if the label no longer exists, everybody should get their music back and we go our separate ways. But hold on, like, so you're telling me for 8 years of my blood, sweat, and tears and my financial investment that after 8 years, if the label doesn't work out, I don't make music myself, right? So I'm not getting my music back. So every artist gets their music back and then I'm left with nothing. Like, that's how on what planet, in what industry does that work, where you invest your money into, like, as a label, you're investing in music. Like, music is the assets that you own. If something doesn't happen, if something happens to the label and it doesn't go further, the music still has value. That's the only thing that has value, because Hobson destroyed that when he went to social media, right? We couldn't sell merch anymore. The documentary that they were working on, like that wasn't going to be able to come out. Like a lot of things that we were investing in. So the only thing that had music, I mean, the only thing that has value now is the music. And that's what I invested in for the past 8+ years. So
before he was there, that's another thing. Dizzy came into a system that worked already. The system was already created because of your years of investment. So let's be honest, if he kept making music and nothing else happened, he might have went like this, right? Just a slight increase. Because he hit the funk volume wave, he went like this. So it's like you created way more value for him. For him to say, oh, it dismantled and I want everything back. And you've already explained that you plan to give it back to him incrementally over a period of time, but you just wanted to make your bread. It's like, by and large, you had way more invested than Dizzy. So for him to even ask for that is insane, but you told him you were going to give him some back. So that's, for me, reading this just is ignorant. Like, off rip, the 50-50 is ignorant, but saying I want my masters back as soon as it dismantles because it had nothing to do with you. Exactly. The label never had anything to do with you. And the formation never had anything to do with you. The business never had anything to do with you. So like, you should have nothing to do with the way that the business is tied up at the end.
Right. And I'm not putting the end of Funk Volume on Dizzy by no means, but he didn't help. Like, because at the end, when they were all frustrated with the Warner situation, which Hobson agrees now, like they all agree now that they were in a great position and they shouldn't have been, as upset as they were at Warner, right? But they were kind of hyping each other up around that time. And I gave Hobson more confidence to do what he did. So I'm not saying that it's because of Dizzy, but his frustration, his lack of understanding of what Warner was doing and them getting together and just hyping up the situation together gave Hobson the courage to go past that point when I said he didn't work that hard. But, for people that didn't see the Funk Volume podcast with me and Hobson, where he had finally admits now that they were in a great position. So again, I'm not blaming the end of Funk Volume on Dizzy by no means, but he didn't help. He didn't help at the end with his frustration and his lack of understanding of what Warner was doing.
Ignorance is gasoline on a fire.
Yeah. So yeah, it had Hobson. Matter of fact, Dizzy's frustration had Hobson thinking that he was just going to kick me out and go forward because he thought the other guys were equally as frustrated. So I don't know exactly what those conversations were, but I know Hobson told me, you better basically check with the guys because they're as upset and they're ready to move forward, essentially without me, because that's what Hobson was thinking, basically based off the conversations they were having when I wasn't around, when they were on the Australia tour in 2000.
Explain how artists are going to run a label when they don't even know how the splits go.
No idea, but
and
yeah.
Who are you going to just get to come in as an executive and treat you fairly and just be you're going to be the puppet bastard now for somebody to run this? None of this makes sense, but okay. Okay. So next he says, I felt like my master should have came back, whatever. On top of that, I would have never gave up that 50% if I knew the label would completely go away one day. So where's the money going to even go if it's not being invested in me?
It's going to me. Like, that's where it's going. It's going because I spent the past 8 years, basically 70 hours a week investing into this label. Now, what these cats don't understand is that I was making 6 figures before I even started Funk Volume, right? So these years where I'm not making anything for the first few years, I'm actually investing over $100,000 a year, in addition to the actual money that's coming out of my pocket. So Hobson would love to do this because he literally signed off emails when we were going through our bullshit. The guy that made you rich. I promise you I would have been in a much better financial situation had I not gotten involved with music. I promise you that. That's just the trajectory I was on. The money, when you invest in a label and you invest in music, if it does well, because it's a very risky investment, it comes to me if I own the masters, and I'll continue to pay you out according to our agreement. And that's what I did. So that's
he never stopped getting his checks, right?
No, I paid him out according to the contract. And one of the reasons I wanted to get his masters back, because I didn't want to deal with that. I didn't want to deal with it. I just didn't want to deal with it. Like,
you know what really bothers me, just in any conversation like this one, that everyone's applauding when the person who already agreed, when the fully capable adult looked at something, agreed to it, signed it, benefited from it, and then years later said, "Nah, I don't like this." And people are like, "Great, good for you." Except those same people value things like loyalty and consistency and respect and partnership, or so they say they do, but they really don't, because it's all based on context. It's all based on their level of comfort or their level of satisfaction from a situation. And, you know, that's an unfortunate fact about a lot of humans. They're not loyal. They're not consistent. I'm not speaking on Dizzy Wright. I'm saying, like, all these situations where somebody signs a management deal or something and everything's discussed. You know, we're adults. We're not taking advantage of anybody's lowered intellectual capacity or anything. All of a sudden they switch up because they feel like they should have made $1.5 million instead of 1 million. They feel like they should have gotten 53% instead of 48%. All that stuff goes out the window.
But the only place that he would have, only space he would have for grievance is if the label went defunct and Dame just took everything. If Dame took everything and stopped paying people out, then I would be like, because that's the way that it seemed like it was presented when Funk Volume went under. Everybody was like, Dame's a scammer. This man stole all of our money, whatever. Then you start looking into it. It's like, no, he had really fair deals that y'all blew up and he kept paying. If Dame was a vindictive dude, he could have kept everything. He had the paperwork for it. He kept paying people out on, he could have easily went back and changed stuff. He kept paying people out. Even right now, Dizzy is complaining in a post announcing that Dame gave him his masters back. I'm so floored by that. Like, what? This man said, what are you doing if it's not invested in me? Dame preemptively invested in you, idiot. That's why it was set up so that you could come in and immediately make money. So retroactively, Dame is making his money. It's actually way more. Dame is in the worst deal with this. He spent money on a project that he didn't know was going to make money, had to wait for his money to come back to him, started splitting the money as it came in for the profit, and then on the end gave all the masters back when rightfully for the rest of his life, this is Dame's intellectual property. Like,
and got violated on social media.
The rest of his life. Yeah, he gives it back, teaches Dizzy how to get it back. Hey, I want to help you. And this dude is complaining. This shit blows my mind.
And on top of that, like, you know, now that we have 5 years since the label blew up, we kind of see how people move on their own, right? They kind of see, because everybody benefited from the Funk Volume.
Say that.
Everybody benefited from the Funk Volume platform. Me, I'm not including myself, right? I benefited from it. Jaron benefited from it. Dizzy, Hobson, and now 5 years we don't have that platform. Like, that's still the best performing music from Dizzy. Like, that's still, it wasn't like, oh, well, what if Dizzy didn't get, like, Funk Volume is the reason that he has a career to this point. Like, that is, to me, it's the only reason. Because if Funk Volume would have went away and then he would have like skyrocketed, I'd be like, damn, Dizzy would have been better off without us. Like, no, you should still be grateful for the platform that was given to you at this point. There should be no negativity in these posts. It should only be thankful for the opportunity to do what you love for a living because you were invited into this platform. Like that's what it was.
You gotta follow the dollars. Like you said, don't even just put it on him. Let's look at all 4 artists, and this is no shot to anybody. Look at all 4 artists and then look at you.
No,
I'm just making a guess but I'm confident that your money has continued to increasingly grow. Your influence, your relationships, like even this, BeatStars, Revolt TV, Big Jaw, all these things. You're the type of person that is like, regardless of what situation, what artist, what medium you had in your hand, you're going to be successful. We can't say that for and this is, again, no disrespect. We can't say that for the artists. Right now, they're in the residual glow. Almost all of them are in the residual glow of what y'all built. And I, like, you got to follow the money. You got to. And I want to just bring more attention to that point. Like, let's look and see what these guys have done since this. And that's why he wanted the masters back so bad, because he's looking like Funk Volume's music is still streaming like crazy. I got to get that.
Right. I mean, Hopsin still does well. He has the type of fans that no matter what, like, and it's a big enough platform. So I'm sure Hopsin does really well. But in terms
this ain't double XL, Dame. We got to keep that a buck. Yeah, I'm saying you're being nice to these dudes.
But I'm going to keep it.
Double XL, all that.
Yeah, no, all that extra shine is not happening. Like everything's just kind of happening under the radar, because there's no interest. There's no larger interest from the industry because things have died down and it just is what it is. But nobody is in a better position. I mean, I wish Funk Volume was still around. It would have given me more opportunities even outside of Funk Volume. And it would have allowed me to navigate this industry with less paranoia, right? Because now that I have all this negative bullshit that's not warranted, like I'm in the back of my head, if somebody doesn't email me back or somebody doesn't call me back, I'm always thinking like, damn, maybe it's because they saw something on Funk Volume and I don't understand, I'm always in my own head now. So I'm definitely not saying that I'm in a better place, but I have the skill set and the network to find other things, to invest in other things. So I'm going to be okay. But I definitely went through a period where I was really struggling for sure, because I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And again, I was in that just a state of kind of paranoia in terms of navigating the music industry. But yeah, I mean, Hop did a deal with 300 that didn't work out. Like after his situation, like everybody wishes that infrastructure would still existed and the buzz still existed and things like that. But I know we're running up. So let's try to get through the rest of this post. And then we can wrap it up.
Okay. Yeah, I would have never given up the 50% if it wasn't being invested in me. Insane. Anyways, I had to learn the hard way that business is business and that homie shit can go right out the door. And even though I thought I was fucked up, I still ended up having to buy my master's back.
Wait, what? Did he pay you for his master's?
No, I just deducted amounts from what I was supposed to pay him so that he wouldn't have to come out of pocket to get his master's back. So over the course of 2 years, I deducted an amount on each one because I would pay them twice a year. So I would deduct a certain amount, and then after 2 years, he just got his master's back. So essentially, he paid for them, but he didn't have to come out of pocket for it.
But Dame, let's talk about this. Most people can't buy their masters back. I have 2 artists at labels right now. If I had $1 million check, $2 million check, I could not. They don't want to sell them. So like, even that is like, I had to buy you literally financed a way for him to get his music back. And he's talking about, I had to bullshit.
Right. And I just want to talk about the homie thing real, because that shit kind of hurts me because we were partners. And when I brought him on, like I did everything with him. I went to all the press stuff. I was at all his videos. I think I did his first 2 tours. Like me and Dizzy were close. We were real close. But there were some things that happened that let me know that I wasn't as close to him as I thought I was. Right. So basically at the end of Funk Volume, Dizzy was still about to go on a tour with Logic. He was about to open up for Logic. And this was when Funk Volume was crashing and burning. I wanted him to still kind of keep the momentum because we were thinking about starting a label, still moving. We were still going to start a label. So in the middle of this tour, he was telling me that a friend of his needed a place to stay and he wanted a house so that all the still moving cats could come create. They can come create and have a comfortable space to do that. I was going back and forth between Vegas and LA. So I was thinking, why don't I just rent a house why don't I just rent a house? I'll live in it part-time since I'm going back and forth. His homies can stay there and they can create. So it was a really nice 2-story house in a gated community that Dizzy lived in. So Dizzy gets off tour. He comes, he sees the house. Everybody's all excited. We're walking around the house, kind of planning out like how things are going to be. And then we get upstairs and there's like a room next to the master bedroom where would be my room. But the room doesn't have a door. And we walk by and he goes, yeah, this would be where people make beats. And I was kind of thinking he was joking at the time because like my room was right next to it. I don't know if people have been around people when they make beats, but it's not a cool sound. Like they're obviously Payne knows, but like they're experimenting with sounds like do, trying to find the right drums and the right things and stuff like that. You don't want to sleep next to that.
You hate that so much.
You don't want to sleep next to it, right? So I was like, Dizzy, that you're joking, right? Like that's my room right there. And then he immediately blew up. He was like, you don't know the vision. You always mess up the vision. Like there's supposed to be a room where people make beats. And we literally almost came to blows in that moment. And it took me by surprise because he wasn't paying for none of this. Like this was a house that he wasn't paying for anything. So he blew that up because immediately I was like, I got to see if I can get my deposit back. And I wasn't able to get my full deposit back. So I lost a couple grand on that. And the house never materialized simply because of that, simply because it didn't have an extra room for producers to make beats. So I was like, this ain't friendly. Like I was trying to do, once again, something for you. But even if I did something wrong, you still had a house. And if it lacked a couple of rooms, I thought we was partners, we can fight through this, but we kind of blew that up. So that didn't happen. Fast forward to the still moving conversations, right? So now we're Dizzy announced that we were starting Still Moving a little prematurely. I didn't want him to do that until we sorted out the business stuff, but he said it in an interview. So we kind of pushed forward, started doing Still Moving Mondays and dropping music every week. So we get to the business side. Okay, how we were going to divide up Still Moving. Basically, the deal that he presented to me was I would be funding everything, right? I would be funding everything. He would own half of the label, and 10% of Dizzy Wright's music will come back to the label, which would then be split 50-50. So basically, I would get 5% of his music. And I just thought, if we're even starting the conversations here, this is ridiculous. And I'm not going to put myself in this position because it's extremely unfair to me if I'm going to be funding this whole thing. And that is why. And then when I spoke with it, this is the main point I was trying. I'll land my plane in a second. When I spoke to him about it, he basically said, well, your name is getting dragged through the mud right now. So you're telling me, you're giving me this fucked up deal because you think that my name is getting dragged through the mud and I have to take it in order to get back into the music industry? Like, that's a homie? Like that's a friend? Like, you shouldn't be doing that anyway, because you shouldn't be trying to gain leverage with somebody that you're going to hopefully be in business with for years to come. But especially if you my partner, like if you my homie, then that definitely wouldn't have been the deal. Like, you shouldn't have been holding that against me at all, especially if you knew that what Hobson was doing was bullshit. So who pulled the homie card first? So when I saw the house, when I saw how he was doing business, I was like, okay, let's just keep it business. I'm a maintain my responsibilities with the music. I'm gonna keep paying you out, but I'm not gonna put myself in this still moving situation because it's about to be all bad because he doesn't understand the business and he's trying to gain leverage because he thinks I have to do this to get back into the music industry. When in reality, I don't need music at all. I didn't come from music. I was doing well before music, and I don't ever puff up. I don't ever pump up, put my chest out there like that. But like, again, I would have been way better off financially if I would have never met a rapper in my life. I promise you that 110%. So,
but let's talk about the hypocrisy of him offering you a worse deal than you offered him years before, and you actually have tangible business value. Like his whole point is this was an unfair deal. This nigga offered you a way worse deal. Like, and you had built the whole system that created who he was. That's the part for me that gets me that we talked about last week. Artist, you have to have some sort of value. You gave him a fair deal. You created his whole career. And then he comes back and tries to be like, I'm going to give you the worst deal ever because your name is being drugged. You created his name. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole joint. And so the audacity to sit here and complain, and he did way worse than you ever did to him. It's just like all of this is just ridiculous. It's an echo chamber of ignorance.
A lot of this stuff is some of this stuff is factual and some of this stuff is just opinion. I told you guys, I told you what happened. Those are facts, like how people feel about it, who should have got what deal. Like, sometimes those are opinions and that's fine. But in my opinion, his post would have gotten just as much love if it read something like this. I finally got my Funk Volume Masters back. Now, when you listen to Dizzy Wright, everything is coming to Dizzy Wright. I appreciate my experience on Funk Volume. It's given me the opportunity to still have a career to this day. And thank you. That's it. Like you would have still gotten your 20,000 plus likes. You didn't have to bring any negativity to this. I didn't have to get any texts, nothing. Because Funk Volume was a blessing to everybody that was a part of it. It's sad that it ended the way that it did, but Funk Volume was a blessing. And if you're speaking anything but negativity about Funk Volume, about me, or anything, like you just don't know what it was or what went into it. Like you just don't understand the business. But he could have kept it all positive. He could have kept it all love, and you would have gotten just the same amount of likes. Because I don't understand.
And there wouldn't have been a bridge burned with you.
Yeah,
and now multiple other people.
And as I'm doing things, like, because I'm always looking out for people. As I'm doing stuff, I'm always looking out for people and trying to bring people. If I rock with you, I'm thinking about you even when you're not in my face. Because if I come across an opportunity that I think makes sense for you, I'm gonna plug you. Because that's just the right thing to do. That's how it keeps my blessings coming. I got people doing that for me, so I have to do that for other people. So I don't get it. I'm happy to talk to if people want to take things to the internet, I'm happy to do a live with Dizzy, with Hop. For people that didn't see the podcast with me and Hops, and we sat down for 4 hours, you can check that out. It's on YouTube. I'm always down to have a conversation. If you have any negativity towards me, you can call. I don't dodge calls. I don't do any weird shit. Like, we can have a conversation. If you want it to be in front of your fans, that's not how I prefer to do things, but I'm comfortable with how I've moved. I can have a live conversation. Let's do it. Like, I have no problem. And I'm kind of sad that I did this today. Like that I talked about this today. I'm sad that this is even back in my life. Like I want to move forward. I didn't want to use this platform for this, but I'm hoping that artists listening to this can learn the other side so that you're not just hearing artists complain and just trying to jump on the bandwagon and that energy. And so, yeah.
You want me to read the rest of it?
Yeah, we could just finish it up and then close it out. I know Payne's probably like, yeah, we can just.
It took me 5 years to get it done because the first 2 years I wasn't even understanding how they could do me like that after all the work I put in to help grow the label. This shit get crazy, but it's 2021 now and I'm still standing tall. I want to encourage independent artists out there to be careful who you trust and remember that the business side is just as important as the art. With that being said, go stream and download all the music from the Funk Volume era. To all my real fans, thank you for holding me down all these years. I feel like we deserve this. Still moving.
Yep. No accountability and no objectivity, and that's why I will never manage a creative as long as I live.
I mean,
He basically admits to not knowing the business right at the end.
Yeah, but there's never any blame on the creative. There's not, and I'm saying this as a creative. I could go online right now and make something up about unfair contracts or, whatever. I look at the stuff I sign and I think, okay, that's trash. I would like that to change. Like some of the agreements that I signed with majors, the very first deal I signed with a major was trash. That was my lawyer's fault. My lawyer was the one that I'm blaming. Labels are always going to try, not always, but the majors at least, not Funk Volume or like some of the independents that people love. That you can have more of a conversation with them. Me as a producer, I don't really have a conversation with the label. It's just the lawyer handles it, and the better the lawyer and the more the lawyer cares about you, the better your deal. I'm an adult. I can read it myself. I can look words up. I can learn. This is my business. I'm not using that as an excuse.
But this is like a Fox News tactic, right? Because you say, you complain about the business, and then the assumption's already baked in that the business was shady. Like what I'm saying is, yes, learn the business, but number two, like this business was super artist friendly, right? In addition to what we've already discussed, like we didn't even take what we were supposed to take from Dizzy until he got to a point where he could provide for his family. So once he agreed to those percentages, like we still were like, after his tour, we would still be like, yeah, we were supposed to take this, but Dizzy needs this. So let's give him that. Right. So we went above and beyond to ensure.
That's never talked about.
Yeah, no, of course not. It's crazy to me that there would be any negativity towards my business practices and Jaron would tell you the same thing. Like anytime Dizzy needed anything, I had him. Anytime, making sure these guys have health insurance, making sure Hop's mental is okay. Like we went way above and beyond what typical traditional labels do. And I'm not saying, I just did what I thought was right by them as men, as people, right? Because as, especially Dizzy at his young age, like he was maturing into a young man. So I felt it was important to, in addition to the music stuff, we need to make sure that his life is okay. And that stuff is definitely not talked about. And it's just crazy to me because so when you read this post, obviously you assume right away, oh, it was probably a bad business, but Dizzy didn't understand, so it's kind of his fault. It's like, no, it was a great business. Dizzy still didn't understand, but and it's sad that even to this day he doesn't understand like like how great I was to him. Like I went over to his house and tried to go through his expenses to try to help him save money and to just show him how to, what he should be spending personally on a month to month so that he wouldn't overspend. And I was trying to get him to be more responsible as a young man. And that obviously that backfired.
Well, this homie shit is overrated. You can't trust anyone in this business. No matter how hard you work and how much you build people up, they'll still stab you in the back. I'm creating a narrative for myself so that the next time I post on Instagram, I can get 20,000 likes too. Sorry. Let me just end it there because we're like super over. Dame already committed to sharing this on all the Funk Volume socials as well. And appreciate you tuning in. Another explosive episode to say the least. Dame, thanks for sharing that story. And if you want to get alerted every time our music business mentorship program goes live, so you never have to sign a deal with someone like Dame, what's the number that they text?
Text MEC to 844-206-7800. You'll get an alert right before we go live. And it's this kind of situation that inspired the MEC. I wasn't in my mind when I started the MEC, I wasn't like, oh, maybe the Funk Volume guys could benefit from it. But obviously that is the situation. They should still be tuning into our sessions in addition to, all the up and coming artists and producers out there, because we bring really dope people to the table and have some genuine conversations. Well,
their fans are tuning in.
Dizzy should text MEC to 844-206-7800 because this shit is out of control and that post is still up and you're trying to milk it. And it's sad at this point. Like it's pretty ridiculous.